So 2024 was a massive year for gaming, for better or for worse. We had a lot of games that got released this year that skyrocketed to the top of the Steam charts, sold absolutely millions and millions of copies, had millions of players sign up for it. And then we also had many games that got released this year that absolutely plummeted, got axed after just 1 week. And I 100% think that this year, 2024, when it came to the games that were released this year and the way that they were received by the public and also by gaming journalism as well, because I definitely think that that is going to change in the future as well, is that I think that 2024 really is kind of shaping the way that video games is going to be in the future. And I'm going to explain that in this video of why I think so by going over some of those games that were released this year, both on the good side of gaming and the bad side of gaming. And I think that it's definitely best to go ahead and get rid of the bad straight away. So there was a lot of games that were released this year that were absolute flops. One way or another, they were flops. And there's a couple great examples of this. The first one that I'm going to go over is Dustborn. Dustborn was an absolutely terrible game. It was made by some developers who were just trying to push some absolute stupid messaging that no one really cared about. I mean, one of the abilities that a player had in the game was for them to cancel someone. That was an ability within this game. And for a while now, it seems that these publications were like thinking that, yes, the best way to go in gaming now is to definitely help with pushing some of these social and political agendas. This is definitely going to sell some games. And Dustborn is a great example of players don't want this in their video games. Players don't really care about these political issues. All they care about is a good game. And Dustborn was far from that, because not only was it trying to push some political agenda, but it was just a terrible game altogether. The same goes for Concord. Concord was a game that had $400 million pumped into it by Sony. And not only was the gameplay terrible, but the character designs of this game were some of the worst character designs that I have seen in recent times. And the fact that they also added pronouns into the game, it's not like it's a massive thing where pronouns were the reason why the game failed. But to me, whenever I see pronouns in a game, I more or less see it as a symptom more than a cause. Because if I see that developers are concentrating on something like pronouns, then I definitely think that, well, if they're trying to put this into the game, then most likely they're not going to care about anything else, and they're going to try and funnel some other things into the game. And definitely one of those things was uninspiring game design and uninspiring gameplay as well. Another game that also came down to terrible character design was Star Wars Outlaws. Me, I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I mean, all you have to do is look behind me, and straight away you'll see Din Djarin's helmet from The Mandalorian right here. Boba Fett, Grogu, lightsabers. You can see that I'm a massive Star Wars fan, but I did not touch Star Wars Outlaws as I was not willing to fork out the amount of money that they were asking for this absolute terrible game with some of the worst stealth that I have seen in recent times. I mean, the stealth in this gameplay made me want to bash my head up against the wall. But not only that, they took this beautiful actress who was modeled for the character and made her completely ugly and a void of what she actually looks like in real life. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is a game where it seems that they were trying to pick up on the looter shooter trend, which, I mean, the looter shooter has been a bit of a trend for a while now. I don't really think it's as popular as it used to be, but you can definitely tell that when it came to Rocksteady's Kill the Justice League, that a lot of the people who did make Arkham Knight, and I'm a massive fan of the original Arkham series. I absolutely love Arkham Knight, Arkham City, and Arkham Asylum as well. You could definitely tell that that all the people who made those original games are gone from the studio, because this game was a void of what the original Rocksteady really was, and they were just trying to pick up on some trend of the looter shooter and not really care too much about the gameplay and also their character design, especially when it came to characters like Mrs. Freeze, which got a very bad backlash from a lot of people within the gaming community. But not only that, also the way that they treated Batman's death it being Kevin Conroy's, the famous voice actor for Batman himself since the 90s, after his death, this being one of his final performances, and the way that they treated this within the game, it being absolutely abysmal. I mean, it was just set up for failure, and now the game is going to no longer get any more funding from Warner Brothers, which rightfully so, because it deserves to be shut down. And one of the final games, arguably one of the biggest disappointments of the year, because it was coming from a massive IP, that being Dragon Age the Valguard. And to be honest, to give Dragon Age a bit of credit, it did start off very well when it came to the amount of players that were playing this game, but it has dropped off exponentially. And I mean, rightfully so, because the game itself is horrible. The gameplay is horrible. The UI is horrible. And don't even get me started on the dialogue and writing within this game.
Here, vegetables.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
This is because I have criticized your dress or your manners.
It isn't!
Under the Q, the term for one whose gender does not match the one given to them at birth was a cuniflock. Perhaps you are like that.
Why do you have to keep picking at it? Why can't you just be happy for me?
Evatosh, Chakra Toebra.
Who I am? Even if I don't feel like I fit, even if I feel wrong?
No, you misunderstood. I will go. Thank you for inviting me to your home.
I mean, I made an entire video of just how bad the writing in Dragon Age the Valguard is, and it's such an uninspiring sequel to arguably some of the greatest games that we have ever had. I mean, the Dragon Age IP is an extremely famous IP and has some of the greatest games ever. Dragon Age Origins, a lot of people consider that one of the greatest games to ever be released. You definitely put Dragon Age the Valguard up there as one of the greatest games ever. And the one thing that Dragon Age was always known for was its excellent writing. As much as we've had massive flops this year, we have had some absolute bangers come out this year as well. One of them being Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong, I mean, I made a whole entire video about why I think that it got robbed for Game of the Year at the Game Awards this year. But besides that, it was still an amazing game. The game design, the art direction, the gameplay, the storyline, everything about this game was absolutely amazing from head to toe. I loved this game from start to finish, even though the final boss made me want to jump out my window in game. I still absolutely loved it, and it deserved all of the praise and the amount of players that it got. I mean, it reached almost 2.5 million players at its peak. That is insane and almost unheard of, as much as Palworld, which came out earlier this year. A lot of people forget that Palworld came out at the start of 2024, and this game took the internet by goddamn storm, reaching 2.1 million players just on Steam alone. It taking an existing game, it being Pokemon, and putting a spin on it and making it say, like, all these people for a long time now, Pokemon has been terrible and people have wanted a great Pokemon game. So it's almost like the developers took it in their hand, said, guys, don't worry about it. We're going to do it justice. We're going to take what you guys really want and make it better. We're going to take what you want in Pokemon and give you what you want. You want guns in Pokemon? That's what we're going to give you. And Palworld delivered. And even though its player base dropped off for a little while, it still kept a decent amount of numbers. And with its recent update, I mean, a lot more people have now gone back to the game. It will never reach the player base that it did when it first came out. Maybe when it comes into full release, whenever that is, because it's still in early access, but it's still going to keep, I mean, 200,000 players, like in its last 24-hour peak, is still amazing. Another game early in the year that took the internet by storm was Helldivers 2. And I'm so glad that this game has made a resurgence after some of the updates that the developers had put out, them being somewhat a little bit lackluster and a lot of the community not liking them. With their recent big update that they did, adding a new faction into the game, it has made a bit of a resurgence on Steam and within its player base. And I am glad, because this game is what players want. Even though this game is about, like, it's somewhat political in terms of, like, you're here to save Super Earth. Yes, bring humanity and kill these tyrants. It's not a political way where it's like trying to force something down your throat, like something like Dragon Age the Vanguard is. No, if anything, the political side of it is just a bit of a gimmicky thing where it's almost like parroting Starship Troopers. Like, it's obviously parroting Starship Troopers. That's what this game is 110% based around, but its core focus is the gameplay. It's all about getting in there with your friends and just shooting up aliens. Like, I mean, what else more do you want? That's what a game is supposed to be focused on, the gameplay. And that's where Helldivers 2 delivers on it so much. And then when it comes to a couple games that came out recently, Path of Exile 2 is arguably going to be one of the greatest games when it gets fully released. Obviously, there's a couple issues with it at the moment. A lot of the player base is a bit divided of when it comes to the state of the game at the moment, especially when it comes to the end game. But you can definitely see that the core game that is there is exceptional. It is everything that people wanted Diablo 4 to really be like. I mean, me, myself, I've got over 500 hours in Path of Exile 1 and I already have 82 hours in Path of Exile 2. And I'm going to keep playing this game for the foreseeable future. And I mean, rightfully so, because you know as well, this is one thing that a lot of these developers get wrong, but Triple G get right, is that they listen to their player base. You know that when it comes to a lot of the issues that the player base is having when it comes to Path of Exile 2, say when it comes to the way the economy is at the moment, or the way the loot is being dropped, the way some of the currency items are being dropped, you know that Triple G is taking everything that people are saying about the way the game is, and they are taking it seriously. You know that they are going to do something about the information they see. That's one thing that a lot of these developers don't do. They don't listen to what the player base wants. But Triple G, you know that they do. And another game, when it comes to like the developers knowing what the player base wants, is Marvel Rivals. I mean, this game I played this game when it was in its closed beta, and I admit that when I first saw a trailer and I first saw gameplay of this game before the closed beta came out, I thought that this game was just going to be a copy of Overwatch and it was just going to be rubbish. But then I played this game and I fell in love with it instantly. Because it's almost like the developers took what Overwatch 2 was meant to be when it came to its fun. It took what the original Overwatch was, and they almost like took that, not exactly like copy and pasted, but they took the core elements of what Overwatch 1 was, put their own spin on it, and put that into Marvel Rivals. And not only that, not only is the game fun, but the character designs in this game, oh my god, they're beautiful. Like, not only are the characters, yes, exceptionally attractive, don't get me wrong, like Luna Snow and shit, oh my god, I fall on my knees every time. But it's not just the fact that they are beautifully made, like in terms of their attractiveness, but also the core character design elements, like the actual design itself, the art direction in the game is exceptional. And despite like some of the terrible games that got released this year, I mean, Steam has reached its all-time peak almost 2 weeks ago when it came to concurrent players. I mean, at one point it had 39 million people on Steam at once. That is insane. It's almost hit. It is going to hit 40 million players. In 2025, it is going to hit 40 million players. Now, also, like I stated at the start of this video, when it comes to the way that I think that 2024 is shaping 2025 when it comes to its games, I also mentioned as well about publications too when it comes to game publications like IGN and Kotaku. These are probably two of the biggest culprits when it comes to how terrible like the gaming publication is these days, especially when they go ahead and rate games like Black Myth Wukong, give that an 8 out of 10, but then go ahead and give something like Dragon Age The Valguard a 9 out of 10, especially when all you have to do is look at the player base of these games, look at the amount of retention these games have got, look at what the player base of each game has said, the fact that Dragon Age The Valguard didn't even get nominated for a Game of the Year while Black Myth Wukong did, and you're saying that Dragon Age The Valguard is better, but also not in their ratings. But what they are saying when it comes to some of their publications as well, in their actual articles, when IGN tried to shit all over Black Myth Wukong, I mean, this the original article came out in 2023, but it definitely bled its way into 2024, claiming sexism over the Black Myth Wukong developers, with it being a complete and total lie, and they're not backtracking and apologizing for the lie that they put out. And then also when it comes to pushing agendas onto the gaming industry itself, especially with this recent article when it comes to Avowed. I mean, that game itself, we all know that that game ain't going to go anywhere, especially with its recent art director and the amount of crap that he has said about Avowed as well. But them's talking about how, you know, saying that the campaign against Avowed really is the bigotry that fuels the anti-woke, and the amount of times that these publications go after the gaming industry themselves. So I've gone over a lot of these like bad games and these good games, and also these gaming publications as well. So you're probably asking me, because I haven't been too clear about it, is that, Donnie, what are you trying to get about? Like, what is it the difference between these bad and these good games, and why do you think that it's going to shape the way that 2025 is going to be and the way that games are going to be developed in its future? Well, if you look at a lot of the games that have failed this year, especially the games that I mentioned in this video, is that some of these games are trying to push political agendas that gamers don't really care about. I mean, gamers don't really give a shit when it comes to you being non-binary, and when it comes to pronouns being the game, and when it comes to pushing actual political agendas that a lot of the times people are trying to escape from the real world. If you are going to try and push a political agenda in a game, it has to be something subtle, like the way Metal Gear Solid does political agendas within their video games, and also something like Helldivers 2, because Helldivers 2, like I said, it is somewhat of a political game in terms of you are Super Earth and you are the human race trying to take out other race. It is space racism, almost like Warhammer 40k, but at the same time, it's not trying to actually push any type of real life political agendas, and it's just mimicking it in a way that's also fun, but not making it its core message, because that's what some of these games try to do, especially with Dragon Age The Valguard in a lot of its writing. It's pushing that as its core agenda and not focusing mostly on gameplay, because a lot of the games that I mentioned, that's why they're crap, because the core gameplay is terrible. It's like these game developers don't care about the gameplay of these games. That's what makes a game bad, because yes, at the end of the day, pronouns don't matter. They really don't matter when they're in a game or not, but it has seemed like it has become a pattern that with the games that do focus on this stuff, they don't focus on other things. Where if you notice the games that I mentioned that have done exceptionally well this year, Black Myth Wukong, Helldivers 2, Path of Exile 2, Marvel Rivals, and Palworld, all these games are focusing on core gameplay, and they listen to what their audience wants. Helldivers 2 was in a shithole for a long time, but they listened to what their audience wanted, and they have started to regain some. Now, they won't reach the peak that they did when it first came out. No, that won't happen, but they have still regained a lot of the players, and a lot of the community now is happy with the state of the game. Path of Exile 2 focused on core gameplay. You know that Triple G is going to listen to its community when it comes to it. Marvel Rivals, I hope, the game hasn't been out that long, but I hope that Marvel Rivals, that they listen to everything the community says when it comes to the game going forward. And not only that, when it comes to core gameplay as well, but also one thing that I have noticed when it comes to all of these games that I mentioned is that the character designs in all the games that I mentioned were terrible. Why is it that Dustborn, the characters look like those generic token characters that you're meant to put in when it comes to, like, you know, oh, we want to add diversity in the game, and that's all Dustborn looks like. Dragon Age the Valguard, all those character designs look absolutely terrible. I mean, I've talked about Concord so many times on my channel. Star Wars Outlaws, the character designs look horrible. When it comes to Black Myth Wukong, Helldivers, Path of Exile, especially Marvel Rivals, because I love the character designs, and I'm not just saying that because they're attractive enough. I just love the art style of that game, like the way the characters are designed. I think it is like one of the greatest examples from this year of how to do great character designs. That's why I think, because if you look at the games that have done well this year, they focus on core gameplay, listening to their audience, and great character design. Where all the games that have failed have focused too much on political agendaing, self-inserting, and not caring about what the audience wants. That's why these games have failed. And that's why I think that studios, especially publications going forward, are going to look at the way that games have succeeded this year and failed this year and change the way that they're going to do things in the future. But I would definitely like to hear what you guys think about all this down below. I think that 2024 has been a great year for gaming. I think that 2025 is going to be an even better year for gaming. And I hope that the failures and successes of this year really make studios take a step back and look at the way that things should be done. But that's going to be it from me, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Peace out.